Hello guys, welcome back. So far we have seen what is JEST framework and why do we need to use JEST framework for JavaScript testing, and also we have seen how to configure JEST in Angular project. In this video we are going to see how JEST uses matches to test your values in different ways. So now we will see all the commonly used matches. Let's jump in. In this chapter we will see how JEST uses matches to test your values in different ways. So we will see all the commonly used matches. Let's jump in. We will create a component named matches and we will see all the matches from that component. Okay, let's create a component. ng generate component matches. Okay, we have the component created. So it's named as matches. Let me clear this. Okay, so this will have all the specs defined default. If you run this, it will not throw any error. Okay, npm run test. Okay, so our test got passed, so which means our application is clean now. We don't have any issues. Let's start learning the matches. First, the simplest way to test a value is with exact equality. So for that, we need to use to be. So first, let us create an it. Two plus two. Let's check with a number, adding number is 4. So we are going to test whether 2 plus 2 is 4 or not. For that, expect 2 plus 2, then dot to be. So this will test the exact equality. See, checks the value is what you expect. This is uses object.is to check the strict equality. But for floating point numbers, we should not use to be. We should use a close to or something else. Okay, so now we'll check whether it is 4 or not. Okay, so now we will run our application in the watch mode for the testing. Okay, npm run test :watch. This is what we have defined in the script. If you see in our package.json, we have test.watch, test:watch. So that is what I am running. This is executing our JEST in watch mode. So this is for exact equality. Okay, we have our application running in the watch mode. The JEST cases are running in the watch mode now. Okay, so now to test the exact equality, we need to use dot to be. To test the values, we can use to equal. Okay, so let's check object values. I have a variable named const data. Here I'll name it as Techopsworld. Now we will expect this data dot to equal Techopsworld. We'll save it. Okay, so this has been passed. Now let's see if you change it to be, what happens. Save it. As expected, we got the test failure. This is because we have used to be. To be should always be used when you want to test the exact equality. Here we are using object. So here to test object, always use to equal. So when we change it to equal, the test will get pass. change it to 2 equal. Save it. Yes, we could see the test got passed. In general, 2 equal recursively checks every field of an object. It doesn't check the complete matches. It will check for each field in an object or else each value in an array. So that is how 2 equal works. Object testing. Now let's see truthiness. So in test, sometimes you need to distinguish between different values of a variable. For example, undefined, null, or false. So then how do we use matches for those? Let's see all the matches for the truthiness. I have the truthiness already written. Let me copy that code. So here it is. So here, don't think like you are testing a value from this it. Always it will be referring to the component. For example, you need to test like component dot and then the name of the variable, whatever the methods you are trying. Okay, so here let us save it. Here the value of n is null. So for the to check the null, we have to use to be null. So this will test whether the value of n is null or not. But this is defined, right? The n has value. So which means to be defined. This is also we can test whether the value is defined or not. We can test like that. And this is not undefined or something because we have already defined the value with null value. So in this case, I am negating the undefined. So this is not undefined, right? So in this case. And here it's not to be truthy because null is a false case, but it's again a value, but it's a falsy case. So that's why it's not truthy. Okay, and to be falsy, yes, it is to be falsy. This is what we have tested here, and we got all the cases has been passed. For the null cases has been passed. But if you want to check whether this value is undefined or not, if you remove this and save, this will be because this is defined. You will face a error, you will get a failure. And also whether if it is truthy, if you remove these two, let us try this. I have saved it. Okay, we have got the failure. Received null, but it's expecting it's to be undefined. So since it's a different value, but if you change it, this value to undefined, the time this will get pass because this is a undefined. To be undefined will pass in this case, but it will make these expectations get failure. This one. Okay, let's revert this and save it. Okay, now let's see this one. I have assigned a value 0 to z. So in this case, I'm checking whether it is not null or not. Here 0 is a falsy value, but it is not a null. So in this case, I'm expecting it is not to be null. Yes, that is true, right? So this case will get passed, and we have defined the value for the z. So in that case, this also gets passed. And whether it is undefined, no, this is not undefined. That is the case also will get passed. And here we are checking whether it is not to be truthy. Yes, this is not truthy because 0 is a falsy value, and to be falsy also a falsy because this is 0, right? This is a falsy case. So all this will get passed. Now let's see how to use matches for numbers. I have already written for the numbers. Let me copy that. Let's save it. Here expect like we have a variable inside in our component and that value is 4. So here we are expecting whether the value is to be greater than 3 or not. Yeah, this is greater than 3 because it is 4, and this expectation will get passed. And here we are checking whether it is greater than or equal to 3.5. Yeah, this is greater than or equal to 3.5 because 4 is a value, right? And this is greater than 3.5. So we have two options to check for the greater. One with a greater than or equal, or another one with a greater than. It's so the operators, right? Greater than or equal to. So it is the same for less than or equal to. So this is how you test a number which is greater than or less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. To test the exact equality, you need to use to be or to equal. Here both are equivalent for numbers. When it comes to object, at that time to be and to equal are not same. You have to use to be for if you are checking for a string value, then you can use it to be and to equal also. You can test. You can use both. But when it comes to object, always go with to equal. So this is how we test for integers. When it comes to floating point numbers, we can't use to be or to equal to test an exact equality. But here the floating point numbers, we can use something like to be close to. Because this is not 0.3, this will be like a 0.3333 something will come. So for that, always use to be close to for floating point numbers. When you check with this value, it will throw an error. So that's why I have commented here. And we can see our two test cases has been passed for the numbers. Now let's see for strings. For strings, if you want to check a value which contains any letters or something, you can test something like that. To match, this checks a string matches with a regular expression. Here this is the regular expression. I am checking whether this techops contains D or not. Here I am also checking it is not to match because it doesn't have any value. So I am making the test cases pass. So here this techops doesn't match with a D. But whereas if you see here Techopsworld, here to match world, I am checking whether this Techopsworld contains a word world. So it contains the word, so it is passing. So that is why we have both the cases has been passed for the strings. Now let's see arrays and iterables. Here I have defined a variable called shopping list. So this will assume like this is a variable present in our component, and we are going to test that variable whether it contains a value called milk. So here I am expecting this shopping list to contain milk. If it contains the milk, the test will get pass. If it doesn't, then it will get fail. Then we are creating a new set out of this array list. So here we are created a new set, and in that set we are checking whether it has milk or not. Again, this will get passed. This is how you test arrays and iterables. Okay, we have our test case has been passed. We can see here. Now let's see the exceptions. How to handle exceptions in JEST. To test exceptions, first we will create a method inside our component. So here in the matches component, I am creating a method. So here in this method, I am throwing a new error with a new message. Let's save this. Let's go to the matches component spec file. Let me copy the test case I have written for the exceptions. So here, to test a particular function which throws an error, always use a dot to throw method. So this is what you have to use to check whether the method is throwing an error or not. Make sure the function which throws error always wrapped up with a function. Here, this compile Android code has been wrapped up with the arrow function. Otherwise, you will end up in getting the test case failure. Let's save this. So here at the first line, we are checking whether it is throwing any error or not. In this test case, we have 4 scenarios has been covered. The first scenario is whether this method is throwing or not. If we could see, we have the throw class mentioned here. So this scenario gets passed, and the next scenario we are checking whether it is throwing the error or not. So this is the error we have mentioned here, the error. So it is throwing the error, that is also gets passed. And in the third scenario we are expecting the exact message. Here I have mentioned you are using old Angular. You are using old Angular. So it is expecting whether that method is throwing this message or not. And also we can use the regular expression with that message. I'm checking whether the Angular is present in that message or not. So you can do any ways to test a method, whether it is throwing any error or any error object or whatever the strings it is throwing. You can test all the scenarios. So this is how you handle exceptions in JEST. In the next chapter, we will see how to test asynchronous codes in Angular using JEST.